for you guys to be here. It means a lot to me, it means a lot to my team, and it means a lot to, I guess, everybody here, because we're a team in the end. So we have been doing Fofis Rainbow Green Talks, which are inspirational talks to share a little bit of hope and love and care and support to our community. We did one we're trying to do one every month during the school months. We did one last month, we're doing this one, we have another one in May, and we'll start again in August. So today's talk is by a professional motivational speaker who has it in her blood because her dad is also a professional motivational speaker, and I'm saying that he is because although he's not here with us, he's made such a difference in the world, and he's impacted so many people with his life, with his teachings, with his talks, with the way he lived day by day, that it's still inspirational, it's still motivational, and it still lives on. So she inherited that from her dad, and she is also a spectacular human being who has a beautiful story, and she's just amazing. So you guys are very lucky. I know you're coming here probably to support, or because someone forced you to come here, or you just couldn't say no to someone or whatever. But trust me that you're not going to regret it, and this is something that you're not paying for, but in the end, it's going to be priceless. Even if you try to put a price, you wouldn't have been able to. So welcome our friend here, Fofis. Part of our Fofis Rainbow team, Jairo de Posada-Rodriguez. Sorry. So to start, I'm going to say a little quick prayer. If you guys can join me, if you believe in God, and you pray to God. If you believe in La Luz Eléctrica, you pray to Lord FBO, or whatever you want. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Lord, for giving us the opportunity to be here, take time from our busy lives to listen to this message. We pray that you speak through Jairo, and that you give her peace in her heart so that she can convey the message that she's chosen to bring to us. We pray for everybody here, for everything you may be going through or not. We pray that you get something out of this, that it helps you in some way, and that you go home and share it with someone else that may need it. And we pray that something that Jairo says today touches your life and makes a difference. In memory of my beloved daughter, La Fofi, and Sabi, whose mom is also here joining us, and other daughters around here that I've heard of. We love you like crazy. Amen.
If you're here today, it's because you are in some way connected to La Fofis Rainbow Foundation. Maybe you're connected because you know me personally, and that's why you're here. Or maybe you're connected because you've been touched by the foundation. Maybe you've been rainbowed. Maybe you have participated or volunteered in our events. Some of you may not even know that you are connected to La Fofis Rainbow, but because you're here today, you are officially connected to La Fofis Rainbow. So welcome, and thank you for being here. La Fofis Rainbow Foundation was born as a result of the death of a little girl. Our little Fofi, Veronica Guerra, passed away 2.5 years ago. And despite the grief that loss brought to our families and to our friends, somehow her amazing mother found a calling to open this foundation to try to help other people. So this foundation was born literally as a result of a tragedy. One thing can change everything. And that's really the purpose of this talk today. One thing changes everything. If we had to choose whether we'd be sitting here today gathered, because we are here as a result of La Fofi not being here, if we had to choose whether we would be here today gathered together, for some reason having to listen to me talk, or have La Fofi with us, what would we choose? We would choose La Fofi. I mean, there's no question about it. If we could choose not to be here today so that we can turn back time and have her here, that would be our choice. It's like a toddler. You walk up to a toddler and you say, do you want the yellow cup or the blue cup? He says, Mommy, I want the red cup. And you say, no, that wasn't one of the options I gave you. I told you the yellow cup or the blue cup. Which one do you want? No, I really, really want the yellow cup. And sometimes you just can't give them the yellow cup. And that's what our situation is today. We cannot bring Fofi back. Unfortunately, we can't change the past. We weren't given that option, but we can choose to be here together. So essentially, the way I look at it is we were creative toddlers, and instead of choosing the red cup or the blue cup, we chose the rainbow cup. And now you're all part of our rainbow. So thank you for being here today. One thing can change everything. That reminds me of the butterfly effect. Has anyone here ever heard of the butterfly effect? Okay. The butterfly effect essentially is a theory created by scientists to predict the unpredictable. That a little butterfly could flap its wings and create a series of events that are so powerful that they can actually generate a tsunami in Asia. Think about that for a second. A little butterfly, a tiny little butterfly, flaps its wings in Africa, and through a series of events generates a tsunami in Asia. One thing can change everything. You've also heard, I'm sure, of the domino effect, especially in Miami, where you have a series of events. The dominoes, you line them all up, and then you drop one, and you can see all the dominoes to get to the end. And that makes sense to all of us, right? Because you think one thing changes everything, and it's a series of events. But unlike dominoes, humans are not dominoes. We're non-linear human beings. We don't react exactly the same way. We don't cope exactly the same way. Every decision we make is not the same, and therefore, there is not a direct link from one to the other, which is why I love the butterfly effect. Because in the butterfly effect, the unpredictability of the weather is non-linear. You almost cannot connect the two, and yet they are connected. One thing can change everything for many people. Now, I want to disclaim something today. I am not here to teach you how to overcome pain or overcome loss. I could not ever be so arrogant as to try to stand here and pretend that I can teach you any of that. Our pains cannot be compared. They cannot be judged. Our pain and our grief is as unique as our fingerprint. And it may not even be for loss. A divorce can be extremely painful. Illness is painful. Financial hardship is painful. And death is very painful. So I purposely titled my talk, How to Cope with Loss, and not How to Overcome It. Because I never want you to think that I can pretend to heal you. Sometimes the pain never ever goes away. In my personal case, it's too soon to tell. I don't know if I'll ever stop grieving the loss of my father. Maybe I will, and maybe one day I'll realize that I'm not grieving anymore. But it's too soon to tell for me, and I'm sure that it's too soon to tell for a lot of the people that are in this room. But coping is different. Because as David Kessler said, and Betsy and I have talked about this, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Suffering is optional. So how we cope with our pain? We all have to cope with it because we're like the toddlers that want the yellow cup or the blue cup. We want the red cup. We want the yellow or the blue? No, we want the red. We're like toddlers. But we can make choices, and we don't have to suffer. So we have to cope. So, how did I end up here? One thing can change everything. When Fofi passed away, I personally was devastated. It impacted my family tremendously. It hit us home like you would not have any idea. our families are very close, and we could not believe that this had happened. So naturally, when something happens like that, you're not the one, this is not happening to you, but you want to come to the rescue of those who are in pain. So you do what you can. You don't know what to say, so you call, you take smoothies, you take flowers, you show up at their house. You really don't know what to do. And I was one of those people that I really did not know what to do. And then one day I get a phone call from Betsy, which was very unusual because at that time, I was always the one calling her. She never called me. She didn't have the energy to call me. So when I saw her number on my caller ID, I could not answer the phone fast enough. I'm like, hello? And she said, the only thing I hear out of her mouth is, hi, is running a half marathon on your bucket list? And I'm thinking, I'm not sure or prepared to answer this question right now. So I really wasn't expecting that. She goes, not a full marathon, a half marathon. Is it on your bucket list? And I said, why, Betsy? She says, well, because my friends are running a half marathon in Puerto Rico for my daughter. And I want to run with them. The problem is that I hate to run. I don't want to actually run the half marathon. And I don't want to train by myself. And I know that if I don't have somebody to train with, that I'm not going to do it. So I was wondering if you would be willing to do it with me. So people that know me know that I'm a yes person, and therefore I answered the phone and I said, yes, of course, I'll run with you. And then I hung up and I thought about it. And I thought, okay, well, in order to run the half marathon, I have to run 13 miles. And I have to train and leave my family. And I'm not fit for that, and I haven't run ever, and I'm not in shape, and I don't do exercise. Okay, maybe she'll forget that she asked me. Or maybe she'll back out, and she's not gonna wanna run the half marathon, and I'm gonna be off the hook. So I eased myself at that because I have a strong belief that you don't worry about things, and that 90% of the things that you worry about never actually happen. Until Monday, when she called me and she said, well, you know, we really need to get started because we're behind schedule. And you need to be at my house today at 7:30. I hope that's not inconvenient. I know you have to put the kids to bed at 7:30. That's the only time I can do it, so we gotta run tonight. And I said, okay. So I started running with Betsy. The first day that I did it, I was so intimidated because she's in so much better shape than I am. And I was so intimidated, and I said, you know, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this, but I did it. And I started running with her. And it went well. I did pretty good. I was able to finish the 3 miles. It was a good experience. I went home and I felt really proud of myself. And then the next time we went and we ran again. And then we ran again. And things started going really, really well. Until about 8 or 9 miles, when I decided that I should have sent flowers. Because it was too hard. But truthfully, Betsy asked me, totally inconvenienced me, put me out like no other to do this half marathon. And she gave me the biggest gift I could have ever asked for. Because when I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know what to do to help her, all I had to do was put on running shoes, stand next to her, and without talking about it, without saying anything, without having to put any effort, I got to say to her, I'm sorry that this happened. And that's how we did it. And we ran, and things started going really well. And we started bonding, our relationship started getting closer. And then my dad started getting really sick. And I remember when I say the 8 or 9 miles, because they say in running that you have a breaking point. There's a point where once you get to that mileage, you feel like you cannot go 1 more mile. You just cannot do it. And if you can break that, if you have the mental toughness to break that, then you can run however many miles you want. My mile was 9 miles. You remember that, right? So just a couple days before we had our 9-mile run, I was at the hospital with my father. He had gotten very sick. He had had surgery, and he wasn't doing very well. But, you know, they tell you after surgery that you have to walk. So my brother and my sister, who are here today, thankfully, were with me in the hospital that day, and we said, and they said, Joaquin, let's go for a walk. And he said, okay, that's fine. And he gets up with his walker, and he starts walking. And all he had to do was walk outside of his room, walk to the window, and walk back to his room. That was all he had to do. So he started walking, and he got to the window, and my brother was, you know, rooting him on. Yeah, you can do it. That's great. But he was out of breath. to such a point that he couldn't even talk. So he was holding onto the walker, and he kept walking towards the room, and then all of a sudden he passed the room. And my brother started saying, "Pero Joaquin, no, the room is over here. It's over here." And he kept walking, but he couldn't talk to us. He couldn't smile. He couldn't look at us. He just kept walking. And then my sister starts saying, "Joaquin, are you feeling okay? Where are you going?" And he just keeps walking and walking and walking. And then my brother got really creative and started singing the Rocky song. Dun, 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 dun. And he still wouldn't smile and wouldn't do anything. He just kept walking and walking and walking. He actually turned the corridor and he walked all the way to the glass on the other side of the hallway, which was way beyond his capacity. But he kept walking and walking and walking, and all of a sudden he got to the glass and all he did was this. And started walking back. And we could not believe that he had done that. We were so proud of him. It was such an experience that when I went on Sunday to run my 9 miles with Betsy, and I got to 8, and I was at my breaking point, and I needed that mental toughness to go forward, I got to tell her that story. And I said, all I need to do is touch that glass. That's all I need to do. If I can touch the glass at 9 miles, then I have not failed my Father. I have lived like he lives. And therefore, I kept running, and I touched the glass at 9 miles, and then I collapsed. But I made it to 9 miles. At that point, I realized everything that we do is in honor of those that we love. I mean, I did that for my father. My father was living at the time, and I ran and I touched that glass for him, but everything that you guys do is for those that you love. The only difference between doing it when the person has passed away or the person is very ill is the clarity with which you do it. You do it with all this symbolism, with this meaning, and there's clarity involved because that person, that life is finite, and you see it. But all of you touch that glass every day for your family, for your friends, and your work, for your kids. That is coping with grief. Even if you are getting a divorce, for example, you have to touch that glass. If you're poor or you're broke and you need to make money, you have to touch that glass. The only difference is that sometimes some of us have been exposed to more clarity than others. So we ran the half marathon. It was wonderful. And I learned that from that experience, the key that I believe in coping for grief, which is let yourself be loved. Just allow people to love you. There are so many people in this world that want to love you, and we block ourselves. We don't let them love us because we feel vulnerable, or we have pride, or we're embarrassed. But Betsy let me love her. She allowed me to be there for her and to do something that represented my ability to say I'm sorry to her. So that is a lesson that I learned, and I learned it from her. Let yourself be loved. And ask for help. If you need something and you have people that you love, ask for help. Even if you think you're putting the person out, ask. You never know what is going to happen from that's going to come from that, because one thing can change everything. My father eventually passed away, and I got a call 4 days after he died from one of my girlfriends. Her name is Janice. And she's a stay-at-home mom. She had just decided to leave her career to be home with her 2 small children. She was not exercising at the time. She lives in New Jersey, and she's a very good friend of mine. And she called me and she said, I'm so sorry, but I cannot come to the funeral. I can't fly down. But I want you to know that I love you. And I read your Facebook post, and on my Facebook post I had written, in lieu of flowers, please donate to a charity of your choice. That's what my father would have wanted. Don't worry about sending me flowers. And she said, I've researched, because she's a researcher. So I've researched and I've thought about it, and I've decided I want to raise money for cancer awareness. But it has to be the right foundation. It has to be the proper thing. So I chose the Rock and Roll Foundation because your father rocked cancer. And therefore, I'm gonna rock a half marathon. I'm gonna run it and I'm gonna raise money for your dad. Now at that point, I was stunned. Thank you so much for running that. I really appreciate it. So she took the in lieu of flowers, literally, to mean running up hills, waking up at 5 in the morning, by herself, for 6 months, through the cold, through the rain, alone. All to raise money for my dad. I didn't mean it that it had to be quite such a sacrifice. I think that you can love people without sacrificing quite as much as she did, but nonetheless, she ran the half marathon. What's interesting about that is that as a result of her running the half marathon, she lost an amazing amount of weight. She looks fantastic. She changed her diet. She found a passion in exercise and running. She had been looking, searching for something. She wanted like a part-time job. She didn't really know what to do. She didn't want to be an auditor anymore. And all of a sudden she realized she wanted to be a health coach. She started teaching at a gym. She became like the most seeked out aerobics instructor in a gym that people were filling up her class. The poor other aerobics instructors that had been doing it for years couldn't get a person in their class because they all wanted to go to Genesis. And she, to me, was the symbol of one thing can change everything. She just decided to do something for someone she loved, something that was a little bit out of her comfort zone, something that required a little bit of a change in her life. And it changed her entire life, to the point that she called me one day and she said, you know, I gotta admit to you, I started this for your dad, but really, I feel like I've received all the benefits. I feel like the gift was for me. Which is exactly what I felt when I ran with Betsy. I felt like I had done it for her, but at some point in time, it was beyond her. It was even greater than that. The change was for me. Betsy, of course, decided that she wanted to pay it back, and I remember that phone call where she said, not a full marathon, a half marathon, so I decided to step up her game, and I told her I was running a full marathon. And as you all know, from her story at the last Green Talk, she ran that full marathon with me. And she did it as a way to love me. So she first let herself be loved, and then she loved. And I needed her at that time. And during the half marathon, she hated it, and it was a sacrifice for her, but it was really that she was running with that emotional baggage that she was carrying, and she was running like a victim of her circumstance. And when she ran that full marathon, she was no longer a victim. She was the victor. She carried me at that point because I wasn't grieving at that point. And she had worked through that. She had coped through that. Did she overcome the pain? No. Is she not grieving? Of course she is. But she was able to grow and carry me when I needed it. As a result of that, she started listening to motivational speakers on her iPod. She did not like running alone, but she had no choice to run the full marathon because her schedules didn't always match. So she had to start running by herself, and she started listening to motivational speakers. She started listening to rosaries, or praying rosaries, and she found a love for motivational speaking and prayer and meditation through those runs, which is actually why I'm standing here right now. Because it was during our runs that she finally got the inspiration. She had always thought about Green Talks, but it was during our run that she finally got the inspiration and the courage to start the series and to say, I want to go out and I want to share our story with other people. Because one thing changes everything. So what's the moral of the story? You should all be runners. And because you're here today, I've registered you all for the Miami Marathon. No, in all seriousness.
The half, right?
No, full. The truth is, it doesn't matter if you're running. That's really not the point of it at all. The point is to allow yourself to be loved and to love those who need it. The point is to enjoy, appreciate, and nurture the relationships we have left. Because we have beautiful relationships here, and we need to nurture those relationships. So the point is, just be there. Say yes. Don't be afraid to ask. And love the people that you have surrounding you. We have an amazing community here. Now, I did a little research and I looked up what the rainbow means in the Bible. And the rainbow is the sign of love and the witness of God's promise, the symbol of God's faithfulness and mercy. And of course, when do rainbows appear? When we need them the most, when there's a storm. So, I'd like you all to get up, stand up, and I want you all to hold hands with each other, everybody. And feel the energy that's in this room, the love, the pain, the companionship. We are all connected. So repeat after me. We are all connected.
We are all connected.
We are all loved.
We are all loved.
We will love.
We will love.
Together, we will see the rainbow.
Together we will see the rainbow.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That we ran in. I brought him in honor of my dad and of our Fofis. Be a rainbow in someone else's cloud.